Well, good morning. Today I want to chat about the Utopian green energy plan for the world, for specifically here in Ontario. The wind and solar green energy utopia that'll be the way we get our power for our electrical power for centuries to come. And it sounds so wonderful that we can get all the power we need from wind and solar. But first of all, I wanted to go back in time, talk about the transition of electricity power in Ontario just briefly. When they built the Beck plants at Niagara Falls to supply power for Ontario, they felt that would be like enough power to last 50 years or more, just that power that was supplied from Niagara Falls. Of course, that didn't last that long. As we needed a lot more power than that, because when Beck was built, houses had one or two lights in them, and that was about it. There was no whole lot of power. Now we have everything from microwaves to toasters, electric ovens. Everything's electricity now. So we need a lot more electricity. Another thing that happened is as the city of Toronto grew, we found that we needed to secure the power supply of electricity to the city of Toronto. So a couple of power plants were built. One was the Hearn plant down at the bottom of the Don Valley, Don Valley Parkway, and the lake. The Hearn plant was built, and it was a coal-fired plant, and that was to provide a secure source of power closer to the load, being the city of Toronto. And then, of course, over at the bottom of the 427 on the lake was the Three Sisters Towers of a Lakeview generating station, and that was built. And again, that was not only supply the province, but more to secure the security of electricity to the GTA. So that's why those two were built. And we continue to build hydroelectric plants, and of course, then in the early 70s, the nuclear industry started up with Pickering A. There's a little history before that, but basically Pickering A was the first large power using nuclear power. So that was Pickering A was around 2,000 megawatts of electricity, and then Bruce A, then Pickering B, and then Bruce B, and finally Darlington. So today we have around between 10 and 11,000 megawatts of electricity supplied to the province of Ontario from our nuclear fleet. Now, that decreases quite substantially. It increases by 3,000 megawatts when the 6 units at Pickering A, they're 500 each, so that's 3,000 megawatts, become decommissioned as of 2025. So we're going to lose 3,000 megawatts of nuclear power come 2025. Now, I guess the most incredible thing, the most wonderful thing for pollution and greenhouse gas emissions was when they decided to shut down the Nanacoke coal-fired plant. And it was the largest coal-fired plant in North America, by the way, just so we know. So around 6,000 megawatts of electricity was the capacity of the Nanacoke station. So before Nanacoke was shut down, though, the Hearn plant had already been shut down. The Lakeview plant had been shut down. So now we didn't have a security of power to the city of Toronto any longer. We didn't have a source of energy close by the big load, which is the GTA. So anyways, so we shut down the Nanacoke station, the big coal-fired plant at Nanacoke, and the thing was that what was said to the public and what we were told was that the 6,000 megawatts was replaced by green energy, renewables, wind and solar. It was sort of true. We did add about 6,000 megawatts of wind and solar to offset what we lost from Nanacoke. But at the same time, we added 7,000 megawatts of electricity from natural gas. So why was that required? Okay, so first off, let's talk about the security of the power to Toronto, to the GTA. So there was a number of natural gas-fired plants that were built. Again, one right down near the foot of the Don Valley, on the cement factory or cement property down there, Portland Cement, was a natural gas fire generator was set up there. And then there's one in Milton. There's another one on the north side of Toronto. There's another one on the east side of Toronto. And of course, we wanted to put one in Oakville, but the scam on that, and the scandal about this natural gas electricity generator being placed in Oakville. And so it should have been there. It should have been placed there, but with the political climate, they decided to cancel that one. And the reasons for these natural gas fire generators around the city of Toronto, around the GTA, is to secure the power supply. So we have this utopian ideal that wind and solar will be the way of the future, that we'll get all our electricity from wind and solar. So in any given year, the amount of wind and solar electricity produced is equivalent or even a little bit higher than all of the natural gas that we use for generation in the province. But it's not the amount of electricity that's given in a given year, it's when the electricity is available. So, and that talks. Then we have to talk a little bit about demand. So basically, the way that the grid works is, as demand goes up, generation increases to match. So, it's so the generation of electricity in the province is load following, fundamentally load following. Now there is a base load as well. There's a base load that we always produce, and that's like the minimum that the province needs, and most of that is provided by the nuclear power and some thermal, natural gas in different areas, and of course our hydroelectric. We've got around 5,000 or so megawatts of hydroelectric power in the province that supplements that forms the base load sort of thing. But as the loads increase, as the demand increases, we need more load, then that is where the natural gas comes on, and it quickly picks up power that the others are at their limit. So natural gas becomes the peak load supplier of electricity. So where does wind and solar fit in? Well, wind and solar, whenever they can produce anything, whenever the wind is blowing and the sun is shining and they're producing energy, that automatically gets taken into the grid. And we back off on other sources of power to allow the wind and solar to be there. So that maybe we may back off on hydroelectric. We definitely back off on any natural gas that's required, and to maintain the equivalent between the supply and the demand. This is kind of confusing, I guess, a little bit, but anyway, that's how the grid basically works. Is the wind and solar, whatever they give, we take. The independent electrical system operator accepts that power and backs off on whatever else they may be generating. So that in that case, the supply will exceed the demand. They'll have to back off to match it. So they back off on natural gas. They may back off on some hydroelectric, and the nuclear plants are kind of hard. They don't like to maneuver very much. They don't like to be reduced in power and back up. That's not their technology does not allow that to be very. It's not something that's very useful for them to be able to do. It's not a good thing for them to do that. So they don't do very much of that. So anyway, so now we just said that the wind and solar in the province produces as much electricity in a year as natural gas. So why do we need all this natural gas? Why do we need so much natural gas electricity generation in the province? Well, it's when the demand is really high. When the demand hits its peak, around 24,000 megawatts of electrical demand, and that usually occurs in the summertime, in those heat waves in the summertime, then we need everything we can get. And it's at this time when actually wind and solar are producing the minimum. They produce very little power to the grid, specifically during those high demand, hot summer days. And you know what's going to happen. First off, the province of Ontario, 65% of the days are overcast. So solar, although as wonderful as I love to have solar, like all solar, it just doesn't work here that well because 65% of the days are overcast. So the solar production is quite low. And the other thing is that when it's super hot, those hot, humid, hazy days of the summer, when you would die for a breeze, so does the wind. So the wind doesn't produce very much in those days either. And we're talking like around the 10% of the installed capacity. So they have very little capability to support the electrical grid when the demand is at its very highest. So what do we have to use? The only thing we can use then is natural gas. So this problem with the euphoria or the thing of having wind and solar as being the be-all end-all for supply of electricity in Ontario, I can't see it ever being that way. There's no way that they just don't produce the power when we need it the most. So we need to have natural gas to supplement the what wind and solar aren't doing, and to maintain the supplement of the nuclear end of the hydroelectric supply. So the only way we can maintain the supply of power in the province of Ontario is to use natural gas, which is hugely better than coal. So natural gas produces around 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions from coal. So we've done a great job shutting the coal plants down in Ontario. I mean, it's incredible that we've done that, and kudos to those that had the foresight to do that. But to think that we're not going to need any natural gas electricity supply and we're going to replace it with wind and solar, it's not going to happen, guys. The wind and solar just cannot be the euphoria supply that we're going to need, especially when the high demand. So now, a little bit about wind and solar. So in the province of Ontario, there's lots of wind generation, around 5,000 plus megawatts of installed capacity in the province, and most of those are along the shores of Lake Huron, north shore of Lake Erie, and the east end and north shore of Lake Ontario. Those are the main supplies. Now, none of those supplies are close enough to allow security of the supply for the GTA. So in the GTA, there's no wind, no solar of any significant amount to provide the security of electricity to the GTA. So again, we'll go back to that, why after Nanticoke was shut down, we had to build these natural gas plants, and they had to put them around the GTA to secure the supply of electricity to the GTA. So the wind power, so specifically talk about the wind. The wind was built in areas of the province that were deemed the most acceptable or the highest wind criteria there, so that they would produce the most electricity. Now the whole province doesn't have that kind of wind. So if you look at where they are, one of the biggest ones is up Shelburne Way, up north of Orangeville. That's one of the largest wind farms. That's on the highest land in the province. One of the highest peaks of land in the province is in that area, and so it sits up high, and there's a little bit more wind there. So it's a great place to have wind power. Of course, along the shores of the lakes and that. So, well, what are we going to do in the future? How are we going to use wind and solar to meet the demands, the ever-increasing demands of electricity for the province? Well, it's not going to be wind and solar. The only way we're going to meet the demands of the province of Ontario is either add nuclear or more natural gas. We can build all the wind and solar we want. It will never be able to supply the demand of this province. Thank you.